What's up, my friends, and welcome back to another edition of the Philly Central podcast. And today I am joined by a buddy of mine and a guy who just got his newsletter off the ground, and we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. A tremendous writer, coverage of all things Philadelphia sports in his own right. And my buddy, of course, it's Rich Hoffman. Rich, what's up, my friend?
Tyler, good to be talking Phils with you again, my friend. Has not been, I think, the start that we were expecting. I don't think it's been the start that anybody has been expecting. But hey, like we said just a few minutes ago before we got started, at least we have some stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, the show certainly wrote itself. I came up with the other day, yesterday actually. I was, making graphics for an entirely different video. It was just a stat-driven nothingness video, basically. And then I get the text, Rob Thomson fired. I'm like, oh, crap, I got to change my entire show today. But it made things very, very easy in the sense that it was a pretty easy, straightforward show. And we'll do a little bit more of that. If you're here listening on any of our audio-only platforms, hit that 5-star review button. It would really help us out. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the like button on your way out of here as well. We would really appreciate you doing that as well. So without further ado, let's get into the topic of conversation, which, of course, is the fact that Rob Thomson yesterday was let go by the team after a 9-19 start. And, Rich, I think the last time you and I got the chance to sit down and really talk X's and O's baseball was after the final game of the NLDS against the LA Dodgers. And the themes that kept coming up when you and I and Pat Egan were speaking about this team and about Rob Thomson were a lot of the same. It was inability to hit with runners in scoring position. It was struggling to score in moments that mattered. It was really good pitching in the postseason. Pitching we'll get to in a little bit. It's been a little less certain this year, but it was kind of a similar strategy over the last couple of years now. And, to me, when I looked at Rob Thomson being fired, my reaction was, if they were going to fire Rob Thomson, I thought it may happen at the end of last season. When they brought Rob Thomson back, my assumption was this is probably Rob Thomson's last year, but my guess is he's probably safe for the entirety of 2026. He didn't even make it a calendar month. So when you heard the news that Rob Thomson was fired, what was your initial reaction?
Wasn't surprised compared to, the last couple weeks. Like, I figured something was going to have to happen, but if you would have told me 6 weeks ago that Rob Thomson would not have made it to May, I would have been absolutely floored. But then again, I didn't know that these Phillies were capable of just Tyler, the first month, that's as miserable as I've been watching a baseball team. Just completely hopeless. It's the starters get shelled. The offense, they might score a run in one inning, or Schwarber might hit a 2-run home run, but the rest of the guys are not hitting, and they don't score the rest of the game. Some timely bullpen collapses, the worst defense you can imagine, terrible luck, all of those things. And I think the word that I keep coming back to is untenable. It just became untenable for the Phillies not to make a move. Do I think this is really Rob Thomson's fault? No. I mean, no, it's managing a baseball team. You are reliant on your players. You are reliant on your GM to give you a roster. And I feel like both the players and Dombrowski have been really lacking in the early going. But yeah, I mean, I think over this past week, it got to the point where it's like, look, this has been, relatively speaking, a short stretch of the season, and the Phillies are not a team that I think acts rashly when it comes to making moves and trying to break up anything with this core. But it had just gotten so bad that when you hear Dave Dombrowski is down in Atlanta with 3 scouts snooping around in the locker room, you're like, all right,
and not really hiding it either. They were pretty just, hey, we're here, and make of that what you will.
I made the joke in the newsletter today, like he was the I think you should leave hot dog guy, like trying to find the guy who did this. It's like, Dave, like the lineup you put together was not very good, my guy. So not hiding it, and certainly not hiding his interest in Alex Cora after the fact as well. So yeah, it is a bummer, but like, I mean, you know this better than anybody. Like, this is the exact situation that they fired Joe Girardi in terms of the schedule. Just you get an off day, you're getting your brains beat in kind of by good teams. You see you're going home heavy part of the schedule, softer teams coming up. I think we saw hopefully a preview of what's to come in last night's game against the Giants. Just you're not playing that Braves and Cubs lineup all the time. and hopefully they can get on a run here. But it stinks. But I think just because of how poorly they played, I get it too.
Yeah, I've always been a big believer. Like I think baseball, maybe more than any other sport, players play, and managers fall on swords. That's just kind of how this thing works. So the weird kind of nature of how this transpired, you brought up the timeline, was everybody had this inkling of, if Rob Thomson's going to get fired, if Kevin Long's going to get fired, if I don't think Dombrowski was ever in the crosshairs, but you never know. If one of these guys were going to lose their job, Monday made perfect sense. Soft landing, day off. As you said, this Giants offense absolutely stinks right now. It's as dreadful as the Phillies offense has been for most of the season, and they've just been consistently bad. But it felt like kind of a soft landing spot. When it didn't happen Monday, my thought was, okay, maybe they're giving him another 2 weeks. Maybe they're giving him this home stretch, as you brought up. Then you hear on Tuesday that they were deliberating. The holdup, as you brought up, may have been Alex Cora. The holdup was reportedly Don Mattingly doesn't particularly want this job. He's doing it kind of as,
by the way. I like that.
A path of least resistance, I guess, for this team. But I think that the timing was a little odd in the sense that after Monday passed, my assumption was just, okay, they're not doing it yet.
Yeah. I mean, me too. And I think at the time I was like, well, look, maybe they're of two minds here. Maybe they fell on the other outcome here where, yes, they have a ridiculously easy stretch of schedule coming up, and Rob has earned the benefit of the doubt to turn this around. They'll probably play well. And Tyler, like, that's the thing about baseball. We don't know. Like, maybe they do go on a 2022 topper like run under Mattingly, but that could have happened under Rob too. I think the big difference between this and the last one was that this locker room, they just didn't jibe with Joe Girardi. That is not the case right now. Like, they clearly liked Rob Thomson. He built the cachet up to, from winning all those games, winning the pennant, all those things. But it had just gotten this bad. One thing that I think is kind of interesting, and I was sort of trying to process this yesterday. You said path of least resistance. It really is, and it's weird that the manager is the path of least resistance. Because I think Kevin Long is the guy who I think should kind of also be in the crosshairs, and it's way too easy to blame the hitting coach. I know all that stuff. I know all that stuff that firing Will Thompson, that didn't really work either. Way back when. But when I look at the lack of development from Bohm, from Stott, from Turner, I know Harper, and Schwarber all have a good relationship with Kevin Long, and Kevin Long is well thought of around the league, but Turner still has these maddening tendencies as well. He's a guy who I would think would be like, if you wanted to make a move to shake things up, it would be him. But then you have to readjust your whole hitting program. And I feel like that is almost more of a change than just saying, hey, the CEO manager, the guy who sort of oversees it all, important job and all that stuff. But it really does feel like the path of least resistance compared to any other staff changes they would have made.
Yeah, and when they gave him a 3-year contract extension this offseason, that really feels like a statement of, we like this guy. And, maybe after this year, there is a change if a truly new coaching staff comes in. I said at the beginning of the year, I do think there is a chance that the Phillies' top 3 coaching positions, a la the manager, the hitting coach, and the pitching coach, may all be different in 2027. And the reason that I said that was because I did think that this would be Rob Thomson's final year as the manager, assuming that they didn't make my assessment was probably make a World Series. Winning a World Series is very, very difficult. Making a World Series, I mean, you see guys and coaches get lauded for years because they made a championship series. So my thought was, if he doesn't make a World Series, that might be it for him anyway. 1 year left. I think they'd be okay getting off the financials. Kevin Long, even though it's 2 years, I think that at that point they would say, we need a new philosophy. We need a new approach, because a lot of our veterans, although they love you, probably would be, it's time for a different mindset, a different thought process. Caleb Cotham was not because of negativity. My thought is Caleb Cotham should be a manager at some point for somebody. He's a heck of a pitching coach, and I do think at some point he gets a chance to be a manager. And I don't know if it's next year, but my thought kind of wandered to, there's a chance this team could have 3 high-level coaches be different in 2027 than in 2026. And we've already seen one domino fall.
Man, if let's say they go into next year, let's say they make the playoffs, but kind of, quick exit, wild card series, all that stuff. And Don says, all right, I did a good job here this year, but I'm out after that.
Sure.
Because I do believe, like, when he's saying, like, I'm taking this job pretty reluctantly. Like, I've already done a lot as a player. I've managed a lot of teams. I think he's going to get the energy and he's going to enjoy this season, especially if they turn it around. But is there a situation where, he's a guy in his mid-60s that he's like, all right, that's enough, and they go into the offseason,
sure,
maybe they try for Cora, and I know Cora is real tight with Dave, and maybe that's the selling point, but maybe they strike out on him. I feel like, man, like, if Caleb Cotham's going to be a manager, I would almost let him be the Phillies manager and say, like, hey, like, we'll give you the title, we'll give you the pay bump, but can you still do a lot of the pitching coach?
Well, and that's just my, like, I have no inside information, right? I have not spoken to anybody that knows anything, but I look at him and I look at what he's done to elevate this staff over the years. And it's not just the cream of the crop. It's not your Christopher Sanchez success stories, your Jesus Luzardo success stories. I mean, I think you've gotten more from guys that you probably didn't expect. I think about Tanner Banks. I think Matt Strahm was a good reliever when he got here. He left as borderline a great reliever. Now, I know you talk about the metrics maybe heading in the wrong direction, but Tanner Banks has been improved. Matt Strahm got better as he went along. And then you can start to think about some of the fringe guys that have improved, both in the rotation and in the bullpen. I think that he is a guy with a really strong pitching coach record at this point. I do think I don't know if he wants a managerial job, but I think he'd be very good at it. And I'm not saying for here specifically, but I just think in general.
Yeah, and I think to the point we're kind of getting at, not like he was on the hot seat, even though the starting rotation has been a disaster. His track record has just been excellent over his time here. But it's like, you can't, it's almost like, I don't think removing even Long, who has a much more questionable track record over that time, it's just like, to do that mid-season is tough. Like, that feels like an off-season type of thing to me. That feels like Alex Cora brings in his staff and sort of sets the philosophy in spring training and in the early season, and so you can work out those things. I know it's still early in the season. There's a lot of runway left. That does not feel like something that's easy. So Rob gets fired, and here we are, hoping that we get another turnaround after a disastrous start.
So let's talk about the Rob Thomson tenure, because it ends after managing a little over 620 some odd games as a member of the Phillies coaching staff. His 355 wins are the 10th most as a Phillies manager. Now, I know the Phillies have had a lot of pockets of bad with very few sprinkles of good, but for an organization that has been around for almost 140 years, being top 10 in the win department, because they do have over 10,000 career wins, is not a short accomplishment. I also looked at it as there have been 22 managers who have managed at least 400 games for this franchise. His .568 winning percentage is by far the best of that group. It's better than Charlie Manuel. It's better than Dallas Green. It's better than Danny Ozark. It's better than all of those names. And his 21 postseason wins are second best only to Charlie Manuel, who is one of two Phillies managers to win a World Series. I think, and I'm curious your thoughts, I think if we separate the gut reaction of how this season has happened and the overarching conversation about Rob Thomson's tenure, I think we will look back on this in a very positive light. How do you look back on the 600 plus games of Rob Thomson's tenure as a manager of the Phillies?
No, I think you nailed it. And because of all of those pockets of bad, I think I have grown to appreciate, hey, they didn't win a World Series, some very disappointing playoff performances, which Rob was a part of too. I did not love some of the decisions he made in that Dodgers series in particular last year, but I do appreciate the summer being a lot of fun and then winning a lot of games. And he did that for 4 straight years, which was awesome. I find myself, first off, I think it's great that they offered him an advisor role, and Rob seems like he's willing to come back. I don't know if maybe he does get another shot at some point. I thought Jim Salisbury, I forget where I heard this, he made the point that, hey, like, if the Blue Jays ever struggle, like, would the Canada teams say, hey, this is a guy right from our backyard who has the pedigree of doing well, I feel like he would be a great guy to take over at midseason again somewhere. But it seems like Rob would be willing to come back like Charlie did, and whatever role that is, even if that's just a guest instructor in spring
Senior
training,
advisor to the whatever.
Make up whatever term.
Right.
Pay him a good amount of money to do that. Like first off, I think he deserves it. I like that the Phillies have done that over the years, and it seems like he'd be amenable to it too. The other thing, Tyler, I would say is just that it was so disappointing to me because Rob Thomson, I don't know, for whatever reason, there are a lot of good guys in sports. There are a lot of bad guys in sports, but he seems like just like a unique human being in that he's just so genuinely a good person, egoless, his humility. He does the press conference after he gets fired and says nothing bad about the Phillies. And it just doesn't surprise me after seeing him over these past few years. So I'm with you. I frankly, sometimes you do need some time to digest it. It's sort of like the Jeff Stoutland thing with the Eagles, where that sort of just ended on a bad note. But in a few years, you'll be able to step back and say, man, I hope they have Stout back at everything, and he is, whether he's coaching for another team or whether he's an advisor for the Eagles, he's going to be a beloved person in Philadelphia forever. Similar to Stout, I would say Rob is already there with me. This season has gone poorly, but now that he is out of the job, I will look back on his time very fondly. The fact that he was going to retire after the 2022 season, he told them before the year, hey, this is my last year as bench coach. I've had a great run, but I think I'm going to retire. He becomes the accidental manager in the beginning of the year, and he stays here for 3.5 more years to the point where he becomes a beloved guy in Philadelphia. So I will definitely look back on Rob's time as a positive. Is it a bummer that some of those playoff collapses, 2023, really sticking in my head right now? Yes, and that is part of it. It is unfortunate that, unlike Charlie, he does not get to win the championship. But yeah, overall, great story, great dude, and a really good run.
Yeah, and I think when you and I talked at the end of the NLDS last year, we kind of ranked which ones stung the most. And it was very recent after the Dodgers series. 2023, I think, was the obvious number one choice. Because in 22, it was a crazy great run to get there. The postseason, I mean, you think about game one against the Cardinals in the wild card round. They are dead on arrival for 7+ innings. And then they explode off Ryan Helsley. The Segura ball, that ball should never have reached his bat, let alone found grass. And Bohm gets hit with the 102, and they're psyched up. And the way that changed the complexity of that postseason, that game, I truly believe that game was a unique fire starter for at the time was mostly still a veteran group, Schwarber, Cassidy, Harper, all those guys. Mixed in with some youth at the time of Bohm and Marsh and whatnot. That was a unique fire starter that led to an unprecedented and unexpected run. And then they ran into an Astros team that was just better than them. And I think that much like in 93, the 22 bullpen was gassed by the time they got to the World Series. 24, was just disappointing. It was just drop your head disappointing. 25 was well, here we go again. 23 is the one that I think is really going to stick in a lot of people's, minds as you're up 2-0, you're up 3-2, games 6 and 7 are home. The Diamondbacks are the inferior team. Do you go on to beat the Texas Rangers? I don't know. Who's to say? In a hypothetical world, I think I would say possibly yes. But in the grand scheme of things, that's the one that's going to stick for a lot of people. But in the total for Rob Thomson, you're talking about 2 division titles, 2 90+ win seasons, 2 trips to the NLCS, and a trip to the World Series. If you strip away the how did it happen, as our buddy Devon Givens always likes to talk about, just numerically speaking, it's a really solid run for a manager over 3.5 seasons.
Awesome. And he did it with humility and grace. So, yeah, I'm going to look back on it fondly. That said, there were multiple moments in this Dodgers series where it just got to the point where I'm like, man, even if I agree with some of his decisions, he's just pressing the wrong button every single time in these series. And it's I don't think that's his fault. I think, look, the players need to perform. And frankly, their bats have been pretty disappointing for stretches over this run. So it's one of those things where I understand why the Phillies did it. I understand he probably, after those playoff collapses those past few years, like he did not have quite as much rope as a guy with really as many wins over the last 3.5 years maybe should. But when you look back at the tenure, at the era, like it's really good, and hopefully they can move forward with Don Mattingly.
Yeah, I think the two, you bring up the Dodgers series decisions, the two that I think are going to stick with a lot of people, bunt versus no bunt in game 2, I think.
Game 2, and then the bullpen in game 1.
And Duran in game 4 when they used Duran earlier than people wanted.
Yeah, there was that one, and then I think he went to Strom in a situation in game 1 where you could have went with Sanchez, and it just, I don't know. Again, that one wasn't as egregious, but it was an example of me just being like, man, everything he's doing with the bullpen the last 2 years is just backfiring.
Yeah, which was the total opposite for the first year plus. 2022, he could do no wrong.
And that's why, like, when you take a step back, when you look at the era in totality, it's like, man, this is baseball. Like sometimes just doesn't work out. Things don't bounce your way. Sometimes it does. Felt like that. It just sucks that the worst team of the era was the team that got the magic, that caught fire and got all the bounces. Like, it would be awesome if that 2024 team just had the magic and had all the bounces, because maybe they win the World Series, because like you said, like they play the Astros in the World Series that year, and they're just not as good as the Astros, and they play a good series, nothing to be ashamed of. Man, if JT hits that ball in game 3 just like a foot farther and McCormick doesn't catch it, all right, maybe we're talking about a different series and an unexpected
Edmundo Sosa to the Crawford boxes, he hits it to like a deeper part of the park where it's not a home run, and a lot of it changes, right?
Yeah, and you just wish that maybe when they had the better infrastructure, the better players, a little more playoff experience, that they would have had the magic that year. It's not how it worked, and that's baseball. And yeah, but like you said, like I got all the love for Rob Thomson. Beside him and Charlie, am I going to put him quite as high as Charlie? No, Charlie won the World Series, but he's in that tier, and I really enjoyed him, and I hope he's around the Phillies for, frankly, the rest of his life.
So the headline of today's show, and we'll kind of pivot, is to what's next. And we talked a little bit about it with Don Mattingly and how they're going to approach the remainder of the season. But I wanted to give you some numbers, and I'm going to ask your thoughts on how this specifically gets corrected. Because the thought has been, this team has really struggled against left-handed pitching. And the thing that I really dive into is, I expect a platoon against left-handed pitching that includes whomever you're going to put in left, as in right now, Felix Reyes and Edmundo Sosa. And the reality is the Phillies' right-handed hitters against left-handed pitching haven't been good. They're the 10th most at-bats at this point, the right-handed hitters against left-handed pitching, but they have the 27th most hits in that scenario. Their 169 average is dead last in baseball. They have 11 extra base hits in 201 at-bats, and they are the only team whose right-handed hitters against left-handed pitching have a sub-300 slug and a sub-600 OPS. To put it mildly, against left-handed pitching, the guys that are supposed to be doing damage have been relatively useless.
It's insane, man. And it's also why I can't blame Rob for this. Like, he's putting the correct matchups out there. And I mean, all of those stats are just mind-boggling. I think so. Mike Lynch, who's a Philly guy who works for Sports Reference, Basketball Reference, Baseball Reference, Philly company as well, he looked this up the other day. The Phillies, I think, before the 7-0 win over the Giants, the Phillies had their right-handed hitters. If again, this is a 1 month of a season, so I'm sure this will get better. But at that point, they had an OPS against lefty pitching that was like 40 points worse than the next worst team in the last century, man. Like, you can't win baseball games that way. And of course, once Topper gets fired, Bohm faces a lefty in the 7th inning last night, and he pulls the ball over the left fielder's head. It's like one of the most shocking plays of the season so far. I'm not sure he did that one time yet this year, where he smokes a ball, what was it, like 104 off the bat, something like that,
yeah.
And he smokes it over the left fielder's head. Left fielder is playing in because Bohm hasn't hit the ball hard that way all season. These guys got to produce, and that's Trey, that's Bohm, That's Edmundo. That's Felix Reyes when he gets a shot. They tried Otto Kemp. They sent him down. That's Adolis also as well. Those guys, I mean, like, look, you have to make your money against those lefty pitchers. And I will say, it's been a little bit of a mixed bag where there have been bad lefty pitchers that they have struggled against. I mean, they struggled against everybody. I just said that stat. They're like the worst of all time. They did, during this stretch the last week, they saw Sale and Imanaga twice each.
Sure.
It's like, all right, that's like when things are going wrong, that's like insult to injury where they're just, it's like, okay, you're not going to do anything against those guys when you just have no clue. But there are bad lefty pitchers that they have struggled against too. So hopefully,
yeah, I mean they've struggled against Jacob Latz, who wasn't supposed to start that day. They struggled against Martin Perez, who's journeyman, crafty lefty. Guy's been around forever. Like, he's not bad clearly, but junk baller, 91, 92. Wants to fool you. Like, so you're right. You get Sale and Imanaga twice. That's a tough ask. It's just not fair. But they struggled. Now, I'm a big Mackenzie Gore fan. I think his stuff is really good, but they struggled against Gore. They struggled against Latz. They struggled against Perez. Like, you're right. There have been some really, really strong lefties in that group. There's also been some guys that you've gotten to in the past.
Totally. And when you look at the Phillies lineup, like, Schwarber and Harper have the track record where, I mean, Schwarber had that insane season against lefties last year.
Right.
He struggled more this season out of the gate against them. But you feel like both of those guys have the track record that they're going to maybe not destroy lefties, but they're going to hold their own and be pretty darn good against lefties. Marsh is the one issue where he's a very good player and a very good hitter, but you can't really play him against lefties. The track record is what it is. But the rest of your lineup, you have all these righties. They should at least be pretty good against these guys, and they have been a disaster in the early going. By the way, it's going to get better. Like, it's clearly going to get better.
No, I still agree with you on that 100%.
But yeah, I mean, just the first month it's been helpless watching these guys with their approach against these lefties.
So one last guy I wanted
on the team too. You're right. That's the biggest issue. Like, you cannot have the other team throws a lefty, whoever it is, Jacob Latz, whoever it is, and the Phillies offense is completely just baffled by going against these guys. That's got to get fixed. Hopefully, last night was the start of that.
So let's talk one more player last night. And Rich, I really appreciate your time taking some time to hang today. Last night, Jesus Luzardo, that was clearly his best start of the year. I mean, no question about it. Attacked the zone. Fastball was good. His sweeper, when it's on like that, is dominant. Again, I know the Giants aren't the best offensive team in the world, but that's a guy, Luzardo, who, when you talk about numbers versus expected numbers, he's like the most unlucky pitcher in baseball through the first month of the season. That's the start last night that made me go, yeah, okay, that's why I'm not particularly worried just yet about Luzardo. I know his ERA is still 5.5, but that start last night is the type of guy that I envision. He might give you 4 or 5 of those in a row, get the ERA back down to the low 4s, and then you're feeling much better.
Totally. And yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how you have felt about the pitching. Look, they have a 5.80, or before last night's start, they had a 5.80 starters ERA. That's the worst in baseball. Obviously, that's an issue because you were expecting, this is a starting rotation that probably has been the best in baseball over the past couple of years when you combine not only their ERA, but how many innings they pitch too. And Luzardo's the first guy all year that gives you 7 last night. It's, that's just very un-Philly-like. And look, some of that is you had to start Taiwan at the beginning of the year. You get even worse Taiwan than you expected. Okay, fine. Wheeler's back now. You have, I mean, Aaron Nola is a pretty weak spot in the rotation. I was going to say no weak spots, but Aaron Nola is scaring me a little bit right now. But yeah, I think the pitching, when you look at Luzardo, when you look at Sanchez, when you look at some of the other guys, the fact that they are giving up pretty much like the weakest contact in the league as a pitching staff.
Yep.
And the other teams have the highest batting average on balls in play by a mile in the league too. This is like historic stuff. Those two things don't square to me. And I understand that the Phillies defense is not good, and that is contributing to that batting average on balls in play, but they're getting unlucky too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could point to the National Series earlier in the year was kind of the first telling point of that, where it was like dribbler after bleeder after bloop. I think they had 10 base hits in the first 2 games that were under 90 miles an hour. Now, like, I don't know how baseball quantifies hard hit. My thought's always been about 95. Anything over 95, I think, is hard hit. Like my eyeballs tell me like, wow, that ball came off his bat well. But it was like, it wasn't 95. It was like 82, 74.
Swinging bunt. Yeah.
Right, the ball that dribbles down the line and never goes foul. There was a lot of that. It started in the National Series. It's contributed. It's trickled over throughout most of the year. Now, like, you give up 10 runs, you give up 10 runs. There's no way to avoid that. But some of it does play into the fact that, like, I think their third or fourth best hard hit percentage, over the season from their starters so far. And you're right, the BABIP just does not match with what they're doing.
And look, there will be stretches of this season, like last night, like they weren't hitting the ball that hard off Luzardo last night, and it was just like, oh, nice, like that's a ground ball right to Stott, like good, like we're going to see more of that as the year went on. And you mentioned Luzardo, like yeah, the difference between between his actual stats and not only his underlying metrics but his stuff, like he throws 98 with movement on that sinker. That sweeper, yeah, he's getting a 50% whiff percentage on that thing. It looks excellent. His issue so far this year is that whenever a runner has gotten on base, it's been a disaster. And whenever a runner has gotten on in scoring position, it's been an incredible disaster. So fix some of that stuff. Like, he clearly has the stuff to roll off 4 or 5, like, very dominant starts. Doesn't have to be quite as dominant as last night where he gives up, 2 hits, 8 strikeouts.
85 average exit velocity. I mean, just an incredible start last night.
Cruising. And they shut him down after 7, which was absolutely fine. They were going to win that game. Get him out with a good headspace. And, okay, I'm going to do that again next time out. But, yeah, I mean, I think he has been the poster boy of the bad luck. And it's like, I look at Sanchez as well, where he's given up so many hits over the last month. And some of them are bad. Like, some of them are just like, not hard hit balls that are just finding holes and just dying in the perfect place, but they're also making mistakes on top of that, where Sanchez in that Cubs game, right, he gives up a bunch of weak contact and a bunch of hits, but then, he throws a sinker right down the middle that Michael Busch hits, for a mile, and then Happ hits a home run off him as well. It's been one of those seasons. That said, I do like the starting rotation when you have guys like Luzardo with that sweeper, Sanchez with the changeup, like, these guys, it's going to normalize, and they're going to give you a chance to win. But yeah, it's been a bad luck first month for them for sure.
So, Rich, obviously a lot going on in Philadelphia sports right now. The Phillies are what we just talked about for a half an hour, but the Eagles draft just ended. The Flyers look to hopefully avoid the reverse sweep with a 3-2 series lead over the Penguins. The Sixers stave off elimination last night with a really strong offensive performance from Joel Embiid, and Quentin Grimes had himself a heck of a game as well. And you discuss it all on the brand new Broad Street Bulletin, which is your newsletter. And, I guess where can people find the newsletter? What should they expect from the newsletter? And can let's just talk about it for a little bit. Cause it was an easy decision for me to sign back up, because when you did it at PHLY, it was my headline of the morning. I got up, I read it, and then I got about my day, and I'm doing the same now with the Broad Street Bulletin. So how's everything been going so far?
It's been going great. People have been, like yourself, super nice about it, and there are a lot of people who I think enjoyed it at PHLY, where that is the goal. What you said is just, you wake up in the morning, maybe you read it over lunch, anything you missed the night before, any big trends, we talked about Luzardo and his runners on base. That was a big thing today. Went over Rob's tenure today. Sixers game, like you said, Joel going nuts and Quentin Grimes playing well. The Flyers have been so much fun over the past week. It's meant to catch you up. It's meant to inform you, make you laugh. It's about 2,000, 3,000 words every single day. Actually, it's been a little bit longer over this first stretch because it's a rare part of the sports calendar where it's just like all 4 teams, when you had the Eagles draft included, are doing stuff that's actually pretty important right now. And so that's the goal. And it's unlike the last one, it's not free, but we do have a free tier where if you want to just go to Broad Street Bulletin, and it's not street, it's broadstbulletin.com. Put your email in there. You'll get some free newsletters, 2 a month for free, and you can see if you want to sign up. We also have a monthly tier as well that's $5 as opposed to $50 for the full year. But especially for all you people that were at PHLY, and I saw the numbers. There were a lot of people who used to read that newsletter every morning. If you want that, but you want me sort of highlighting more independent shows or the Inquirer or really just taking from any media coverage in Philadelphia that's possible, PHLY as well. I love a lot of the people that are still working there. I mentioned Tyler a couple weeks ago because he's got this new show, and it was funny when you said a couple weeks ago that, hey, or I guess it was last week now. It's all sort of blended together. You said last week, look, I am not a rash guy, but I need Taijuan Walker. It
was time.
Throw another pitch. And by the way, the next day, Dave Dombrowski's not exactly a rash person either. He said, okay, it's time. We got Zach Wheeler coming back. Taijuan, pack your bags. It's just that. And there's always something going on in Philly sports. There's always something with the Phillies in the summer. There's always something with the Eagles, Sixers, or Flyers. It's something that will hit your inbox every day at about 7:15 in the morning. And if you want to catch up, if you are even a fan, let's say, of two of the four teams, like a diehard fan, if you are a big Phillies Flyers fan, I think it's worth your time. But here's the thing. Just go to broadstbulletin.com, put your email address in. You'll get a couple of these for free. I'm not asking for your money yet when you do that. Take a look and see what happens. And if you like it, then sign up for a monthly or a yearly plan.
Listen, I'm going to tell you this, and it's not because you're currently sitting across the screen from me. It's because you and I have become friends in our time working together, and I truly appreciate your work. I spend more than $5 a month on coffee or on energy drinks or whatever it might be. I'm trying to kick the energy drink habit a little bit, but coffee now, right? $5 a month for what comes out to be somewhere in the 20 to 25 newsletters a month range is without question a worthy investment. I've spent $5 a month on way stupider things. This is an excellent investment for $5 a month.
And that was the goal. It's just like, look, I people spending their hard-earned money, I really appreciate it. We've had a nice initial push with all the people that have signed up. You don't even have to spend $5 a month. If you spend the full year, it's $50 for the full year as well. So it's just one of those things where if this became part of your habit at PHLY, or if you want to try it out and see, it becomes part of your daily schedule, your daily routine, a good way to get caught up in Philly sports. If you read 200 of these, I promise you it'll be a worthy investment. And I spend a lot of time on it as well. So it's been a great initial start, and I appreciate the plug, man.
So, Rich, of course, as he said, broadstbulletin.com. You can find him on Twitter at Rich_Hoffman. And as always, Rich, I can't thank you enough for taking some time to hang out with me today. Show wrote itself, but it doesn't mean we didn't strive for quality content, and I hope that that's what we provided. So, of course, you can find him on the newsletter, on Twitter, and, all of the places you get all of your social media. So, Rich, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me today.
It was fun, man. I hope they start winning some games to make the season a little more fun. Not just for you, but for me as well.
Well, 10-19, we'll see how the rest of this month and into the month of May goes. If you are here watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button on your way out. We are getting very, very close. Our monthly goal was 200 by the end of April. We are so close. If you could help us out, we'd greatly appreciate it. Smash that thumbs up button on the way out as well. And if you're listening on the audio-only platforms, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast, please leave a 5-star review as well. It'll help us get into the sports atmosphere that is littered with Phillies podcasts these days. All very good, but we'd appreciate if you gave it a shot as well. So for my co-host and my guest for this week, my buddy Rich Hoffman, I'm Tyler Zulli saying thank you so much for hanging out with us on the Phillies Central Pod. We'll be back next week for our latest episode, and of course you can check out the YouTube page for all of our shorts and breakdowns throughout the remainder of the week. We'll be back next week for the next episode of the Phillies Central Podcast. See ya.